The laughter started as soon as Mike Tyson opened his mouth. But within 30 seconds, that same crowd would be witnessing one of the most powerful moments in sports history, when 6 simple words from Muhammad Ali would silence not just Iron Mike, but an entire arena. This isn't just another boxing story. This is about the moment when cruelty met wisdom, when physical strength faced moral courage, and when a 54-year-old man with trembling hands taught the world's most feared fighter what real power actually looks like. March 1996, the MGM Grand in Las Vegas was electric with anticipation. Mike Tyson was making his comeback after 3 years in prison, scheduled to fight Frank Bruno for the WBC heavyweight title. At 29, Tyson was still considered the most dangerous man in boxing. His absence had only added to his mystique. Everyone wondered if Iron Mike still possessed the devastating power that had made him the youngest heavyweight champion in history. But there was another legend in attendance that night, sitting quietly in the VIP section with his wife Lonnie. Muhammad Ali, at 54, was a shadow of his former physical self. Parkinson's disease had robbed him of the lightning, fast reflexes and poetic speech that had defined his career. His hands trembled constantly. His movements were careful and deliberate. Yet his presence still commanded respect from everyone in the building. Everyone except Mike Tyson. Word had spread quickly through the arena that the greatest was in attendance. Fans craned their necks to catch a glimpse of the 3-time heavyweight champion. Young fighters on the undercard made sure to pay their respects to the man who had elevated boxing from sport to art form. But Mike Tyson was in a different mindset entirely. Fresh out of prison and hungry to reclaim his throne, Tyson was focused solely on projecting an image of invincible menace. In his warped logic, showing respect to past champions was a sign of weakness, and weakness was something he couldn't afford to display. He was about to make the biggest mistake of his career. During a break between undercard fights, Tyson was making his way through the VIP section, surrounded by his entourage. As he moved through the crowd, people stepped aside automatically, creating a path for the man who had once been the most feared fighter on the planet. That's when he spotted Muhammad Ali. For most fighters, encountering Ali would have been a moment of reverence, an opportunity to acknowledge the man who had paved the way for their careers. For Tyson, it became something else entirely, a chance to establish dominance even before entering the ring. Ali was engaged in quiet conversation with former heavyweight champion Larry Holmes when Tyson approached. The entire section seemed to hold its breath as two of boxing's most legendary figures prepared to meet face to face. Well, Tyson said loudly, his voice cutting through the ambient noise and causing conversations to stop mid-sentence. If it isn't the old man who talks too much. The comment landed like a physical blow. Ali looked up slowly, his face showing no emotion, but those around him were visibly shocked. Lonnie's face flushed with anger. Holmes shifted uncomfortably in his seat. But Tyson wasn't finished. Emboldened by the attention his comment had generated, Tyson decided to press further. In his mind, this was the perfect opportunity to show the boxing world that there was a new king and that the old guard needed to step aside. You know what your problem was, old man? Tyson continued, his voice dripping with contempt. You fought a bunch of tomato cans and thought you were tough. If you had fought in my era, I would have destroyed you in 2 rounds. The crowd around them was stunned into silence. This wasn't typical pre-fight trash talk. This was a young champion showing profound disrespect to one of the greatest athletes in history. A man who was clearly dealing with serious health challenges. And then Tyson crossed a line that should never be crossed. Look at you now, he sneered, his voice rising so others could hear. Can't even talk right. Can't even hold your hands steady. What kind of champion were you really? That's when the laughter started, not from everyone. Many people in the VIP section were horrified by Tyson's cruelty. But there were others, hangers-on in Tyson's entourage and some cruel spectators, who found humor in the mockery of an elderly man's disability. Their laughter was like gasoline on a fire, encouraging Tyson to continue his assault. Look at him shake, someone called out, and more laughter followed. The great Muhammad Ali, ladies and gentlemen, can't even hold a glass of water. The cruelty was breathtaking. Here was one of the most beloved figures in sports history being mocked for a degenerative disease that had already taken so much from him. Ali's hands trembled more noticeably now, whether from Parkinson's or emotion, nobody could tell. For a moment it seemed like Ali might not respond at all, The seconds stretched into what felt like hours as everyone waited to see how the legend would handle this unprecedented show of disrespect and public humiliation. Lunny Ali reached for her husband's arm, perhaps to lead him away from the toxic situation, but Ali gently placed his other hand over hers, a gesture that said he could handle this. Then, slowly, Muhammad Ali stood up. Despite his condition, despite being 25 years older than Tyson, despite everything that Parkinson's had taken from him, he rose to his full height with a dignity that seemed to fill the entire space around them. The laughter began to die as people sensed something significant was about to happen. Tyson, perhaps for the first time in the encounter, looked uncertain. He had expected anger, or maybe hurt silence, or even a verbal counterattack. What he got instead was something far more powerful, the presence of a man who had faced down much tougher opponents than the one standing before him. Ali looked directly into Tyson's eyes. The arena seemed to hold its breath. And then, in a voice that, while slower than it once had been, carried all the quiet authority of a man who had conquered the world, Muhammad Ali spoke 6 words that would change everything. "I fight a tougher opponent daily." The effect was immediate and devastating. The remaining laughter died instantly, replaced by a silence so complete you could hear the air conditioning humming in the background. Tyson's smirk vanished. His aggressive posture melted away. For the first time since approaching Ali, he looked like what he truly was, a young man in the presence of greatness, realizing he had made a terrible mistake. Those 6 words contained multitudes. They weren't a boast or a threat. They were a statement of fact that cut through all of Tyson's bravado and revealed the profound difference between a fighter and a warrior. While Tyson was preparing to fight Frank Bruno, a man he knew he could defeat, Ali was fighting Parkinson's disease every single day. A battle he couldn't win, against an opponent that never tired, never retreated, and never showed mercy. And he was fighting it with grace, dignity, and courage that Tyson was only beginning to comprehend. The 6 words also revealed the hollowness of Tyson's mockery. Here he was, making fun of Ali's symptoms, not understanding that every day Ali woke up and chose to face the world despite those symptoms was an act of bravery that dwarfed anything that happened in a boxing ring. But Ali wasn't finished. Having delivered the knockout punch, he followed it with mercy, the mark of a true champion. He stepped closer to Tyson and placed a trembling hand on the younger man's shoulder. The gesture was gentle, almost fatherly, but it carried more power than any punch either man had ever thrown. "You're young, you're strong, and you're scared," Ali continued, his voice soft but audible to everyone nearby. "I can see it in your eyes. You think if you tear down everyone who came before you, it'll make you bigger. But champions don't tear down other champions. Champions lift each other up." What happened to Mike Tyson in that moment was visible to everyone watching. The tears that filled his eyes weren't from physical pain. They were from the sudden understanding of what he had just done and who he had done it to. Here was a man who had dominated the sport like no one before or since, who had transcended boxing to become a global icon, who had sacrificed years of his career for his principles, and who was now facing the fight of his life against an opponent he couldn't defeat with his fists. And Tyson had chosen to mock him for it. "I'm sorry, Mr. Ali," Tyson said, his voice barely above a whisper, the words catching in his throat. "I'm sorry. I don't know why I said those things." Ali's response was immediate and characteristic, spoken with the wisdom of someone who understood human nature better than most. "Because you're hurt, son. Hurt people, but champions help heal." The 2 men embraced then, and the image burned itself into the memory of everyone present. Here were 2 of boxing's most feared warriors, but in that moment they were simply a wise elder sharing his strength with a troubled younger man. The story of those 6 words spread through the arena like wildfire. By the time Tyson entered the ring later that night to face Bruno, everyone knew what had happened. The crowd that had laughed at Ali's condition now looked at Tyson differently. Not as a conquering hero, but as a young man who had learned a valuable lesson about respect and dignity. Tyson went on to defeat Bruno that night, reclaiming the WBC heavyweight title with a 3rd-round knockout. But the victory felt different somehow. In his post-fight interviews, Tyson talked not about his performance in the ring, but about his encounter with Muhammad Ali. "I learned more about fighting in 30 seconds with Muhammad Ali than I learned in 3 years in prison," Tyson told reporters. "He showed me what real strength looks like." Those 6 words, "I fight a tougher opponent daily," became legendary in boxing circles and beyond. They were quoted in motivational speeches, shared on social media, and used as inspiration by people facing their own seemingly impossible battles. The phrase resonated because it spoke to a universal truth, that some of the toughest fights happen outside the ring, away from cameras and crowds, in the quiet moments when we choose to get up despite the pain, to speak despite the difficulty, to show up despite the cost. For Muhammad Ali, those words weren't just a comeback to a cruel comment. They were his daily reality. Every morning he woke up to trembling hands and slurred speech. Every public appearance was a choice to be vulnerable in front of crowds who remembered him in his prime. Every interview was a reminder of what the disease had taken from him. Yet he continued to show up, to inspire, to teach. Because that's what champions do, they fight the fights that matter, even when no one is keeping score. Mike Tyson never forgot those 6 words or the lesson they taught him. In the years that followed, he became one of Ali's most vocal supporters in raising awareness about Parkinson's disease. He donated to research foundations and spoke openly about how Ali had changed his understanding of strength and courage. During one visit to see the older champion years later, Lonnie Ali recalled Tyson sitting quietly, holding Muhammad's hand. When he spoke, it was to thank Ali for teaching him what real strength looked like. The encounter also marked a turning point in how the sports community viewed athletes dealing with serious health conditions. Ali's response to Tyson's cruelty demonstrated that physical limitation didn't diminish greatness. If anything, it could reveal depths of character that had never been visible before. What Ali accomplished with those 6 words went far beyond putting a young fighter in his place. He demonstrated that true power doesn't come from intimidating others or from physical dominance, but from the choice to respond to cruelty with wisdom, to meet disrespect with dignity, and to use moments of conflict as opportunities to teach rather than to punish. The story became a masterclass in handling adversity with grace. In a world where the natural response to mockery is retaliation, Ali chose education. Where others might have chosen anger, he chose understanding. Where most would have sought revenge, he sought redemption, not just for himself, but for the young man who had lost his way. Those 6 words, "I fight a tougher opponent daily," continue to inspire people facing their own battles. Whether it's illness, addiction, loss, or any of the countless challenges that life throws at us, Ali's words remind us that showing up is sometimes the greatest victory of all. The laughter that started when Mike Tyson mocked Ali's Parkinson's died the moment those 6 words were spoken. But the lesson they taught, about courage, dignity, and what it truly means to be a champion, echoes still, silencing cynicism and inspiring anyone who refuses to give up, even when the fight seems impossible to win.